they're going into space, or jet pilots, when you see them in videos, their face is all squished and they're pushed back in their seats. That's only 3 to 5 times gravity, sometimes up to 8 times gravity. The woodpecker experiences 1,000 times gravity. The nerve and muscle coordination has to be perfect. A slip to the left or right and the shearing force would literally spin the cover off the brain. So if you're going to slam your beak into trees for a living, you better make sure you're well designed to do it. Well, now, once you get all of these things in part, heavy-duty bill, heavy-duty skull, some shock-absorbing tissue between them, right nerve and muscle coordination, then you're fit to survive. But how did you get that way? If you were created to multiply and fill the earth, you'd be fit to survive. What about evolution? Could evolution make a woodpecker? Well, evolution always starts with something simpler. So you can imagine a bird. It's not a woodpecker yet. It's just a regular bird flying around minding its own business. Zots. It gets hit with a cosmic ray. The first step in evolutionary progress is damage to DNA, damage to genes. And so it's kind of a funny start, isn't it? But you could stand in front of an X-ray machine or something like that, or just cosmic rays from space. They go clear through our body, and if they hit one of those DNA molecules or gene, they can change it. So something different, it shows up in the little baby bird that's born. Well, now we know almost all of these things that occur, are something harmful. But people who believe in evolution say, well, once in a while something wonderful and new happens. So we'll play along for a minute. Let's say, Zots, birds flying around, gets hit with a cosmic ray, and the mother bird lays an egg that hatches into a little baby bird that just by chance has a real heavy-duty bill. And so he decides to try it out. Whack! Throws his head into the tree. Now his bill is strong enough, but what happens to his head? Squishes in the front of his face. Massive cerebral hemorrhage. Now you see why evolution is so slow, don't you? It's all those little dead birds at the bottom of the tree. And so if all you've got is a heavy-duty bill, but you've still got a little thin bird skull, you're going to knock yourself silly. There's no evolutionary future. There's no future at all in anything like that. Well, someone who believes in evolution might say, you got the story backwards. The first lucky mutation was a heavy-duty skull. That's what came first. Well, let's try it again. An ordinary bird, not a woodpecker yet, just an ordinary bird is flying around. Zots, gets hit with a cosmic ray, lays an egg. Little baby bird's born that has a heavy-duty skull, real thick skull. He decides to try it out. Whack! Throws his head into the tree. Now this time, his skull is okay, but crinkle, 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 the bill all folds up like an accordion. You're still nowhere unless both of those things happen at the same time. By the way, the plot thickens. After man's sin brought death into God's perfect world, some of those woodpeckers are doing more than just drilling holes to store acorns. They're looking for beetles in the bark. In fact, ecology textbooks tell about a time, I can't remember the date now, but there was massive flooding, in the mountains, and broke off a whole bunch of, first the floods came second. First of all, a big storm blew over a bunch of trees, buried them under a bunch of snow, and the bark beetles multiplied like crazy, and the woodpeckers couldn't get in to get rid of them. And so then when the woodpeckers finally got in, the beetles had multiplied out of control, and so then the trees were destroyed, and you got a lot of downstream flooding. So woodpeckers can be real helpful today in getting rid of bark beetles and things like that. But of course the beetles hear all this pounding, and so they just crawl farther down their tunnel. Well, now if you're a woodpecker and you just drilled a hole, and there's no beetle right there where you drilled the hole, what do you got to do? Long, sticky tongue. If you've got a long, sticky tongue, you can go right down the beetle's tunnel, grab the beetle, pull them out, and have beetles for lunch. Wow, what a system. But what would happen if you got a long, sticky tongue just by chance? Here it is dangling out of your bill. You keep biting your tongue. That's no fun. Hopping along the ground, you trip over your tongue. That's no fun. Flying along over a low twig with your tongue hanging out of your mouth. The tongue wraps around the twig. You hang yourself. Okay, that's no good. And so the answer for the woodpecker, by the way, is to slip that tongue in a sheath that goes all the way around the skull under the scalp and inserts into the right nostril. So next time you see a woodpecker, probing for beetles in the bark, grab your binoculars and look, and you can see the scalp twitch as that tongue goes in and out of the tongue sheath. But of course, there'd be no reason to have a tongue sheath without a tongue to put in it. It would be dangerous to have a long, sticky tongue without a tongue sheath. And so you're right back to what Richard Lewontin at Harvard University once said was, and I say is, the chief evidence of a supreme designer. You've got several things that have to work together at the same time. Darwin even said if there was one case of many things having to work together at the same time before any had survival value, my theory would be completely disproven. Guess what? Darwin's theory of evolution has been completely disproven many thousands